Welcome into the Locked On Wolves postcast. I'm Sam Ekstrom. That's Jack Borman. The Timberwolves complete a double-digit second-half comeback. They are 2-0 in the in-season tournament. They've won 7 in a row. This one was bizarre and enthralling. Let's talk about it on the Locked On Wolves postcast.
You are Locked On Wolves postcast, part of Locked On Minnesota on the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Wolves After Dark. Thanks for staying up late with us. The Wolves beat the Warriors 104-101, and oh my goodness, what were they doing on the final inbounds play? Doesn't matter. Timberwolves survive in a game that had a little bit of everything. It was chippy. We had ejections before there was a point. We had a vintage cat game offensively. We had Rudy frustrations. We had a random Warrior going off in this game, and the Wolves almost blew it, but they come back in the second half. I'm Sam Ekstrom, filling in for Luke Inman, who's on vacation this week. That's Jack Borman, managing editor and writer at Canis Hoopus. He joins for every single road game, most of the games with Luke. Jack, what did we just see?
I have no idea. To answer it honestly. Yeah, I mean, just from the start, I think, the emotions of this game were just crazy to begin with, considering, what happened in that last game with Chris Paul rolling up on Mike Conley. You had, Draymond talking at Ant, asking him what he's going to do about it. And then Ant comes down and closes the game with 10 points, really efficient shooting. And then, we have that fight, like you said, a minute and 43 seconds into the game, something like that. The first time in NBA, ABA history where players were ejected before points were scored. And you just knew this was going to be a game where the Warriors were just going to try to punk the Timberwolves. And that's exactly what they did. And, all the pressure immediately shifted onto the Timberwolves, right? Because, people have called this Timberwolves team soft. They've, had a really tough time responding to adversity like this in the past. And, it really looked that way for 3 quarters before, all the adults in the room really got it to the finish line there in the fourth quarter. But man, that game was just off the rails from the start and never really got back on track.
I like the adults got it home for the Timberwolves, the Kyle Andersons, the Mike Conleys, the stabilizers. They needed stabilizers in this game. By the way, this show is brought to you by FanDuel. We appreciate their partnership. Make every moment more, folks. Right now, new customers get $150 in bonus bets with any winning $5 money line bet. That's $150 if your team wins. Visit FanDuel.com/lockedon to get started. And make sure to check out the 24/7 YouTube live stream we're running here at Locked On Sports Minnesota as well. We would appreciate that. And find all of our postcasts, not just Wolves, but Vikings and Gophers football as well. Eventually, Minnesota Twins once April comes around. So let's just revisit the ejections. We'll start where the game started. Occasionally in hockey, you'll see a line brawl off the opening faceoff where there's just this built-up tension. Maybe you'll see it in a playoff series. And this resembled that, Jack, because they played each other 2 nights ago. You had the epic Draymond, Anthony Edwards exchange. Edwards goes off, takes over the game in the fourth quarter. And that shows up immediately tonight. Now, McDaniels and Klay Thompson mix it up. And if I'm assigning blame to who instigated that, it's hard to say. That might be 60% McDaniels, maybe taking that a little further than it needed to go. Draymond Green inexplicably comes in and suffocates Rudy Gobert and puts him in a headlock. And the Timberwolves basically exchange their knight for getting a bishop and a rook. Think of it as a chess move, right?
Great way of putting it.
Couple key pieces gone for Golden State there. So they don't have Curry out with a knee, or is it an ankle? Doesn't matter. They don't have Klay. They don't have Draymond. I think it's just savvy load management on the Warriors' part. They just wanted their guys to get a night. What do you think?
Yeah, I think that's, a fair way of putting it. Draymond Green certainly looked like he had no interest in playing with Stephen Curry not out there. I would assign all of the blame on Klay Thompson. Like, if you put your hand up in a guy's, neck from, 20 feet away from the basket, like you're asking for trouble, let alone someone like Jaden McDaniels, who absolutely is not going to sit there and take that. I mean, the other thing you have to remember is Rudy Gobert was not guarding Draymond. Like, he was guarding Draymond Green the last game, but wasn't guarding. Like, he was playing so far off of him, and whenever Draymond Green got inside the lane, Rudy was right there and kind of punked him, honestly, in that last game. And so kind of felt like Draymond Green was just ready to get physical and retaliate against Rudy Gobert in some capacity. Like, he just went right for Rudy Gobert, knew exactly what he was doing. And very clearly just tried to make a point out of everything that was happening there. And yeah, I mean, it's just hard to say that those two guys had any interest in playing in this game. Which is kind of crazy considering, the stakes of it after what happened on Sunday.
Yeah, I mean, I guess small fish for the Warriors, who have won NBA titles and have a bunch of old guys, and they don't probably care about this tournament. But what's crazy is that you might say that Wiggins and Paul would have been the two next most reliable guys that they would lean on in this game, and I thought they were both terrible. I thought Wiggins was terrible. Paul
made terrible all year.
He has been. He's been, yeah, this has been like Wiggins. There's a couple stretches in for the Wolves where Wiggins looked like this. Paul made a couple big shots late, and, he engineers a lot of that offense, and he keeps the ball moving pretty well. But I thought he was well below average, too. His mid-range seems to have dried up. They're leaning on Kevon Looney, Brandon Przemski, and Dario Saric. The revenge game wasn't Wiggins. It was Saric tonight, and the Wolves fall behind by as many as 12 in the second half. There were some maddening stretches. I even got my Rudy Gobert hand out to do this show in. Rudy Gobert had an oven mitt on in this game. Like, he could not grasp the ball. You could not lob him the ball. He was missing dunks. But then at the end, he comes up with a massive closeout for a tip three, and it's like, all right, all's forgiven. You did the defense thing, and that's why you're on this team.
Yeah, and another big play from Rudy. I mean, you want to start with Rudy and look at what he did in the fourth quarter. I mean, defended his ass off to start the quarter. I mean, he blocked two shots right at the rim. He had another great closeout to Chris Paul in the corner, contested to Wiggins in the slot, which was great, and then got that offensive rebound and went back up with it. And that was Wiggins' fifth foul of the game. And, like, say what you want about Wiggins on the offensive end, but and this is very different from his time here, but he's become a really important defensive piece. Like, he was the most important defensive player guarding, the opposing team's best players every night when they had that finals and that championship run a couple years ago. And so not having him on the floor was big. It kind of allowed the Wolves to get in the middle of the floor and penetrate and spray the ball out, which led to all these threes. And you talked about it too with Carl. So something that I kind of took note of and went back and looked at kind of in the flow of the game. Karl-Anthony Towns had, game tying three. Then Ant gets beat backdoor by Peyton. Then he comes back with another game, go ahead three, and then give up a score, and then a go ahead assist to Nickeil Alexander-Walker. I mean, Karl-Anthony Towns had 5 made shots or assists to either tie the game or go ahead in the fourth quarter alone, which is pretty remarkable. Yeah. And it felt like that too. I mean, every single time they needed a bucket, they got one from him. He hit that, really tough step back in the mid-range on the right side of the court. He just had it going, and it really goes to show that, this Timberwolves team can survive a terrible game from Anthony Edwards, even when, everything looks like it's gone to hell and they're down and out. I mean, without Karl-Anthony Towns, they don't even sniff, being within 10 points of a B squad, not even a JV team, a B squad Warriors team. And so there's not really a whole lot more that you can say about those two guys. And then when Mike Conley got in the mix, he didn't really have the ball in his hands much, which I really don't agree with down the stretch of the game. But Anthony Edwards just made a crazy good skip passes, one of the best playmaking sequences he's maybe ever had to find Mike in the corner. And he's shooting like I want to say he's shooting over 50% on corner threes so far this season. And it went from one of the worst Timberwolves losses in maybe the last 5 or 6 years to just, saying your prayers before you go to bed tonight, thanking, whoever you thank for the Wolves pulling that out.
We've seen that loss so many times, but the expectation's never been as high as it is right now with as hot as this team is. And to literally have Draymond and Klay out of the game before they score a point it probably should have been a double-digit win. But you play the game that formulates, and the Wolves, for the final quarter and a half, they did everything they needed to do. Karl-Anthony Towns, since his 7-point foul-out clunker in the Boston win, 23 against New Orleans, and then 29 and 12, 21 and 14, 33 and 11 tonight. That's 4 straight excellent games from Karl-Anthony Towns. He's back. And Anthony Edwards, who had some questionable decision-making tonight, has this knack, Jack, to just flip that switch, often in the fourth quarter, where it's not going great for him, but he comes up with just enough plays when you need him. Loved the unselfishness on that skip pass to Conley. And how big was Conley in this game? I mean, I still think they robbed him of a point on that pull-up three that they called a three and then they never gave him the three. I was bitter about that. But the stability that he brought, Edwards turning it on in the fourth quarter, if that's going to be the MO for this team, if they can just like dominate fourth quarters all the time like this, I'm in. That's awesome.
Yeah, no, and I think, what Ant has been doing has been just kind of seeing what the defense gives him, right? He had single coverage when he hit that big three at the end of the shot clock. No one was there, just an ISO, easy step in, pull up three for him there. But, at the end of all game, the Warriors were bringing 2 to the ball. They were hard hedging. So, the guy defending the screener was kind of up there at the level of what the Wolves did a couple of years ago in that series against Memphis, against Ja, to try to force Ant to go more east to west than north south. And for the majority of the game, Ant, didn't really try to get all the way around and beat guys to the baseline. He just kind of floated around the perimeter and was pretty, was pretty passive. And then in the fourth quarter, really tried to start getting around those screens and flying around. And that's what created that big play to Conley. And so in the fourth quarter is now what Ant's been doing. If he's got single coverage, it's more of an ISO and a pull-up. But if guys are coming to him, he's been, much improved playmaker and trying to get guys the ball in his spots, especially with those skip passes to the opposite corner. But with Mike Conley, I think, Mike forced 2 turnovers. I think actually 3 turnovers, if you count that moving screen on Wiggins, which is really, really important. And he has a great knack for doing that in the fourth quarter. Which is a huge thing that can totally turn the tide of a game. Because I feel like moving screens just like piss an offense off more than anything else in the world. And it just feels like he has a really good sense of knowing who needs the ball on a given possession, right? And when Karl had it going, it was really getting the ball to Karl. And then once the defense was really cheating up and playing close to Karl and staying attached to him, it just opens up the spacing for everyone else. And then that's a good time to get Ant involved. And we saw that's what he did. And the great thing for Mike is he's totally, an unselfish guy, an awesome teammate, totally willing to stand in the corner and space the floor and let, the other 2 guys in the team that are playing well kind of be the main guys in that action. And then, when his number is called, like it was, in a way that it isn't normally called, in that spot up corner 3 spot, he was ready for it and put the game on ice. And, you just can't say enough about what he's given this Timberwolves team since he was acquired back in February. From a morale standpoint, from a timely, D'Lo is this big shot fourth quarter. That's the marketing with him, but Mike Conley is who you should actually be marketing all that stuff for. Cause man, it just seems like every single time that this Timberwolves team needs a play on offense or on defense, he's a guy that's going to be able to give it to him. And oh man, he just makes you feel safe, doesn't he? He makes you feel safe. He's the biggest difference between last year's team and this year's team. And I think it's noticeable.
3 of 4 from 3 tonight. Should have been 4 or 5. 13 points, 8 assists. Big night for Mike. I'm so bitter about the lost point. Mike Conley, big performance. Just getting started here in the Locked On Wolves postcast. We're going to talk about what's next for the Wolves. Quick turnaround against Phoenix. We'll reflect more on this winning streak. Maybe even give some more love to Brandon Pajensky, since we're giving love to lefty guards right now. But first, a word from Ibotta. Yes, today's show is brought to you by Ibotta. How does free Thanksgiving sound? Well, this year, Ibotta is here to give you cash back and help make sure your Thanksgiving table is complete, because who wants turkey without the gravy? Starting November 1st for the 4th year in a row, Ibotta is giving 100% cash back on your Thanksgiving feast. Just add the offers in the app to redeem for everything you need to make your Thanksgiving feast complete. All you have to do is shop at your favorite retailers and upload your receipt. Ibotta gives you cash back on hundreds of grocery items from produce to personal care to pantry goods, so you can make sure you're beating inflation no matter what you're purchasing. Other apps give you points that don't amount to much. With Ibotta, you get real cash back that you can cash out to your bank account, PayPal, or gift cards. Download the Ibotta app now and use code LOCKED to get 100% cash back on your Thanksgiving dinner starting November 1st. Just go to the App Store or Google Play Store and download the free Ibotta app and use code LOCKED. That's IBOTTA in the Google Play or App Store and use code LOCKED. All right. Thank you, all of you that are in the live room right now. We appreciate that. Of course, you can watch this back on demand, Locked On Sports Minnesota YouTube channel. Also, listen to it wherever you get your podcasts on the Locked On Sports Minnesota podcast feed or the Locked On Wolves podcast feed, which also has all the Locked On Wolves episodes with host Ben Beacon. The Minnesota basketball party. We'll be talking plenty about this game and tomorrow's game as well. That'll be Wednesday afternoon here on Locked On Sports Minnesota. We get Reggie Wilson, Ben Beacon involved, Ron Johnson as well for a good roundtable discussion. So the Wolves have won 7 in a row now, Jack. They are 8-2. Have to look at what else happened in the West tonight, but they entered the day just half a game back in the West standings. As we speak, real-time update. Denver won tonight, so they're 9-2. Wolves are still half a game back. They play Phoenix in about 20 hours. And Phoenix is going to be a little more loaded than Golden State was. They get Devin Booker back. They've got KD. That is a good basketball team. Early thoughts on this quick turnaround for the Wolves. And they had to have this one, because if you're going to lose to the B team Warriors and then go play the Suns, that's going to be a tough turnaround. Maybe running on fumes tomorrow against Phoenix, but feels better to make that trip having won this game.
Yeah, I could not care less if they lose tomorrow. Tomorrow is an all-time house money game. This one mattered way more than tomorrow because it was an in-season tournament game. And you look at the Thunder, I think won by like 36 or 37 points, and point differential is the second tiebreaker. So starting 2-0, having firm control of that group is really important from that. But for Phoenix, Phoenix's offense so far has been terrible. It's been a ton of ISO ball and a ton of guys that shouldn't be shooting the ball because Devin Booker and Bradley Beal have been out. Beal's been dealing with some back issues, and Devin Booker's had a bunch of lower body injuries, from a calf injury to an ankle injury to a toe injury. And so this is the first time in the regular season all three guys are going to be playing together. So there's going to be a ton of energy in that building. The good thing, I guess, is that Jaden McDaniels I think he's going to be able to play tomorrow. I don't know what the rules are surrounding.
Yeah.
So if he's able to play, that's a big thing, that he's going to be healthy and ready to go on Kevin Durant, and that, hopefully Ant and Nikhil will be able to, at least make things a little bit tougher for Devin Booker and Bradley Beal. But this is another great game for Karl Anthony Towns and Rudy Gobert to really make an impact on this game, because, Karl Anthony Towns has feasted against Jusuf Nurkic in the past, who's a starting center now for the Suns, was in Portland forever. And Kevin Durant has been playing the 4 there because they've been starting Josh Okogie, old friend, at that hybrid kind of 2-3 spot to be their primary wing defender. So those guys are going to be able to have their way inside. And if Anthony Edwards still has the energy for it, should be another game where he's going to be able to get into the paint. The Timberwolves can be aggressive there. It's just going to come down to, how much legs do they have, defensively to be able to slow down, 3 of the game's, top whatever scorers, and Durant, Beal, and Booker, and a game they'll have a lot of energy for.
Yeah, I watched Durant against the Lakers in the first in-season tournament game, and I thought he looked fantastic in that game. They lost to LA, but I thought Durant was great. I would be shocked if McDaniels didn't play for some reason. I mean, I think the punishment ends at the ejection tonight. Quick prediction, Draymond. What happens with Draymond?
I think he's going to get suspended for at least like 3 or 4 games. And the reason for that is because, he was saying some crazy stuff in the game before. And then, the game before Sunday, they played in, they hosted the Warrior,
Donovan Mitchell,
the Cavs, I think. And he went at Donovan Mitchell and got ejected for that. So it's a second ejection in 3 games. And then the game he didn't get ejected was just behaving like a crazy person. I think that the league is going to look at this and just, say that he needs to cool off for more than just a game or two. But we'll see. It's Draymond Green, so you never know.
It's a 5-game road trip the Wolves are currently on. They are 3-0. They've beaten Wemby, the Warriors in full, and then the partial Warriors. They've also got wins against the Celtics, the Nuggets, and the undermanned Miami Heat. It's a pretty nice resume through the first 10 games of the year. Wolves are 8-2 right now. They have the Suns and the Pelicans on the road before returning home for a good 3-game homestand. But in this in-season tournament now, Wolves are 2-0 in the pool. And that's important because the head-to-head is a tiebreaker that will matter. You're going to have a lot of tiebreakers in a 4-game, pool play round. So now they own the tiebreaker over the Warriors, which is key. And now they've got the next 2 at home. Like, the Wolves are very likely going to Vegas here, Jack. Do you have your tickets booked?
I don't. I'm going to be joining Luke on the vacation train. I will be in Florida that week. So I will not be going to Vegas.
Wrong coast. Wrong coast.
I know. But yeah, I mean, I think that, the Timberwolves game versus the Thunder is what's going to really matter. So if the Timberwolves are able to beat the Thunder, they will clinch, barring the Kings, doing something, absolutely crazy. They will clinch Group C if they're able to beat the Thunder, because like I said earlier, the second tiebreaker is point differential, and the Thunder are leaps and bounds ahead of everyone else in that because the Wolves have 2 close wins. But yeah, I think it's really important because the Wolves are going to be playing in some higher stakes games, and you can sit here and say what you want about the in-season tournament, but the quality of play and the intensity of these games has unquestionably been significantly higher than your standard regular season games. And if the Timberwolves are able to go 4-0 and they host another team in that quarterfinal game, that's going to be an awesome crowd at Target Center that's going to have a ton of energy. And then they win that, you go to Vegas. I think everyone's going to really be playing hard in Vegas, especially considering, some of the money that's on the line. Also for the coaches, there's a ton of money on the line for coaches too. And I think that'll motivate some players. So, I mean, again, the Wolves are taking care of business. They absolutely should have won the first game. They absolutely should have won this game, which is good. But yeah, I mean, it's just good for them to get some more kind of simulated, higher stakes games, because Naz Reid didn't play in the playoffs at all last year. Neither did Jaden McDaniels because of injuries. So, the Wolves will take any learning experiences they can get, and to be able to kind of pad your resume a little bit, I guess, with some more of these games against really good teams and in those situations is crucial.
Could be a de facto home game for the Wolves in Vegas for that championship with the Vikings in town that same weekend.
Absolutely.
That could be an epic Vegas week for Minnesota vacationers. Let's do a little Bill Simmons trick. Guess the line for tomorrow at Phoenix. What do you think it is? I'm on FanDuel right now.
Suns -5.5.
All right, that's pretty good. -6 is the line right now. In Phoenix, -250 is the money line for Phoenix. That line is at FanDuel, one of our good partners for tonight's postcast. We still got more to come, but let's tell you a little bit more about FanDuel. At FanDuel, you can find all the great promotions, including the following: $5 money line wager. That's all it takes. You have to win that bet, and you can get $150 in bonus bets deposited straight to your account. So, for instance, you could bet the Wolves +205 on the money line tomorrow. If they pull the upset, then you get $150 in bonus bets. Or you could, take a higher likelihood and do the Cavaliers -460 against the Blazers on a back-to-back. And that could get you $150 in bonus bets. And then when you've got the bonus bets at FanDuel.com/LockedOn, spreads, player props, over-unders, plenty more. You've got hockey, you've got football, you've got basketball, pro and college, all the options, every line, every league, as I like to say, at FanDuel. They're an official partner of the NFL. You can also bet basketball at FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. All right, let's clean up some loose ends from this one, and then we'll let the people go to bed. Thanks for staying up with us past midnight tonight on the Locked On Wolves postcast. Little bio on Brandon Przemski, having trouble with the name. He's the Warriors' first-round pick, 20 years old, played for Illinois and Santa Clara in college. Looked good looked smooth. You think the Warriors can't add any more firepower, and then they do get someone like that who may have just played himself like into a role on this team, because that is an offensively punchless group. This isn't the Locked On Warriors postcast. I don't want to spend too long on this, but I do want to, give him his flowers. He played well tonight, banked in a 3 at the end of the third quarter. Don't know if he called it, but I thought that he almost single-handedly kept them afloat sometimes.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, Podziemski too had a really unique coming up, played on the prep hoop circuit, didn't play on any of the big circuits with Nike or Adidas or Under Armour, was really under recruited. And yeah, I mean, the biggest thing for Podziemski tonight is, he was just playing with a ton of energy, right? He was making all the right hustle plays defensively. He found himself, rotating at the bottom of the defense off the guy in the corner as a low man helper, and was fantastic in that role defensively. And I think that's where it all started for him. And then from there, kind of played his way into the game offensively, made a couple of huge shots in that first quarter. And just a super confident player, right? A guy that's just kind of leaving everything out there. He's got absolutely nothing to lose playing in a game like this, where they're down and out. No one's giving them any chance. And that's, when you consider his background and how many people counted him out, and, he couldn't see the floor at Illinois a year and a half ago. And now he's on the big stage in San Francisco playing like this. And, that's got to give a guy like this a ton of confidence, right? And, all credit to him for stepping up and taking some confident shots, and the Warriors just feeding him, right? He scored 8 points in 1 minute on Sunday and just kind of kept that rolling into tonight, where, it just felt like every shot he took, you felt like it was going in. And I'm sure that he felt the exact same way, and all of his teammates did too. And, all of his teammates fed off of that energy. And, he's a great example of, being ready when your number's called. And, like you said, certainly could play his way into a rotation spot for the Warriors. And, that's exactly what they need now, considering, how inconsistent their scoring has been outside of Steph so far this season.
I think tomorrow's got to be a Nas game for the Wolves to have a chance against Phoenix. Nas might be a little fresher, only played 16 minutes, got into foul trouble, picked up a technical in this game. By the way, I told Ron Johnson on the Ron Johnson show this morning, over under at 2.5 technicals in this game.
I saw that.
And we had 4, I guess, or would it be 6? 3 ejections would be 6 technicals, and then 1 on Nas. So
I think it
the
was
final
4.
was 7.
So I think they gave Draymond a flagrant 2.
Yeah. Okay.
And they gave Clay, and so 2 double technicals, and then the flagrant 2. You don't see that very often.
Yeah. So bench tonight wasn't great. Didn't kill the Wolves. Kyle Anderson gave good minutes like he always does. Wasn't super efficient shooting, but he did other stuff well. Nikhil Alexander-Walker, did other stuff well, not always about scoring. Nas, I thought, was a liability on defense, and obviously the foul trouble didn't help, and it would have been nice to lean a little more on Nas with Rudy, I thought, playing the way he was in the middle portion of the game. But, this is going to happen from time to time, where Nas is going to struggle on defense. That, like the opposite of Rudy, he is employed because he is instant microwave scoring, and on occasion he's going to get exposed on that end of the floor.
For sure. I mean, you look at all the games that Nas Reed has played against the Golden State Warriors, it would not surprise me if Nas averages more points per game against the Warriors than any other team, because they haven't ever had a backup 5 that can deal with his size and power and physicality. But, I think it was kind of funny that, his defensive game tonight was, basically exactly what he did in the past 2 or 3 years that gave everybody pause at the idea of him playing more of the 4 and playing more on the perimeter, is that he got beat off the dribble a ton, even by slower guys. And then, instead of just kind of, maintaining that space between, his defender and the rim, he really crowded defenders and was off balance, and guys just got into him, and he was late, kind of getting off the bounce with guys, or like staying with guys that were getting off the bounce. And he committed 3 or 4 fouls that way. And I think the thing for Nas is the ability to just say, you know what, the team won. We just got to flush this one, move on to tomorrow. The great thing about someone like him is he's going to want to play hard tomorrow and want to really, make an improvement on his effort today. And I think, he's really going to be ready to go, because again, it's the same thing with Phoenix. Phoenix's backup 5 is Drew Eubanks, who does not scare anybody. And Naz Reid is going to be able to attack him, as much as he wants, especially if Drew Eubanks has to guard in space. That's not something he's going to be able to do very well. So, yeah, but like you said, I think, Shake Milton had a couple of, important moments tonight, as well as a guy I don't know if you mentioned, but had 2 and 1s at the end of that third quarter to help kind of cut into the lead. And Slow-Mo, I thought, was a huge difference in this one, just in kind of controlling the offense and getting everybody under control and moving kind of as one in the half court, which is important. But yeah, like you said, Nickeil Alexander-Walker too, not his best defensive game, but his, B or B- defensive game is the A game for a lot of other guys. And that's just such a luxury that, that you can tap into that when Jaden McDaniels is out like he was. So yeah, it'll be really interesting to see, how much better these bench guys can be against a very, very short and rather ineffective bench for a Phoenix Suns team that is, all in financially.
Yeah. Can the Wolves keep it going in a back-to-back? They've won 7 in a row. They're perfect in the in-season tournament. This team is rolling. The Wolves don't want to be the team to break the winning ways. They got the Vikings, who can't lose. The Wolves can't lose. Neither of them want to be the one to end the good vibes we have right now in Minnesota. We'll keep it going tomorrow. Jack and I will be back right here. That's an 8 o'clock Central start, I believe. So probably
Correct.
About 10:30 we'll be here. Big crowd tonight. Thank you all for chiming in the comments. I'm reading all of them. I appreciate the passion. I appreciate the opinions. You can find Jack Borman's work at Canis Hoopus. You can find a lot more Minnesota sports talk, including the Minnesota basketball party, here on Locked On Sports Minnesota. Find the audio of this show on the Locked On Wolves feed as well. For Jack Borman, I'm Sam Ekstrom, filling in for Luke Inman tonight. We appreciate you watching and listening. Wolves are 8-2. That's awesome. See you tomorrow.